Today we're walking in Rouen mountain. It's a small mount, about 1,200 meters high, so it's less than 4,000 feet, if I calculate it correctly. And it's got some pretty cool quarries. So on the surface, quarries are just, big cliffs. You can see them there, for example. But the history around it is pretty cool. And there are also some other features we might see along the way that I want to talk about. So let's keep hiking. I'm at a crossroad here. Here's a path that seems to go closer to the cliffs, but also looks just like a forest road that would have been used to plant all these small trees. Here's just the continuation of the path I've been on for the past 10 minutes. So I'm not sure which way to go. There's no signs. Let's take the road less traveled. I almost immediately have a bad feeling about this path, but I'm on it. Let's go. Oh yeah, it's pretty steep and I definitely feel like I'm going nowhere. Look at that. Is that a path? I messed up. That was definitely the wrong way to go. There's no way through. I don't know if you can see, but that's a big hole. At least the view's nice. Okay, we're back on the correct path, and this definitely feels more right. Much less steep, and much more manageable. I should get there. Another crossroad, but this time I'm pretty sure where I need to go. That way. The camera probably won't show it, but there's like dozens of butterflies, plus some light breeze. It's very nice. It's a very nice place. The path is very narrow. I see, however, some big cliffs behind me, so my hope is I'm getting close because I have some fear of heights. It's pretty steep around here. Here we are. And it's very, very big. So here we are at the quarry, and this quarry was used almost exclusively for millstones. Now, in Europe, millstones were pretty common. There were windmills and mills everywhere. But what makes this site special is the scale, both in terms of time. The first millstones were quarried out of here in the Roman era, and the last ones in the 1800s. And in terms of scale, This doesn't look like much if I stand here, but if I go back, I can walk all the way here, and there are just millstone traces everywhere. It's very impressive. And it is to note that the first millstones on the bottom that were quarried out, we don't even see them. It's been filled out with sediment and sand and rocks. Talking about scale, this is only one out of 4 sites on this mountain area. There's one to the left and one to the right of where we are, and there's another one on another mountain really close to here. Quick interruption by me from later on. This is what that specific site looks like. If you could see through the trees, you would be able to see where we were filming just now with my purple outfit. So this is part of the system of quarries that I just mentioned earlier, and in many ways this is just as impressive or even more as the one we just visited. There are hundreds of millstone outlines in this cliff right here. It goes for several dozen meters, like I guess like over 50 meters, so 50 yards or 150 feet at least. So there's a road not far from here, and if you take the path from that road, this is the first one you'd see. You can see just how much soil has accumulated over the bottom of the cliff, but you can guess that at least 1 to 3 millstone extraction points were there. This looks very old. Let's go to the second site. This one is just super interesting. There are many outlines that are still visible in the cliff face, as if, you know, people who work there were getting ready to keep digging millstones from this site, and this stopped. Here, the process looks pretty much done. Doesn't look like they started to dig another millstone, but there are all these striations that are like chisel marks. The bottom of the cave also looks like it has been worked on, and those are pretty ancient looking. Erosion has had time to smooth all the shapes over, but you can still see them in the rocks. So they collected millstones from flat rocks, from horizontal surfaces, and also vertical ones like this behind me. All along the rock face, you can see the marks of former millstones that have been dug out and presumably used for agricultural purposes. Here's a similar situation. There are millstones that are, the outlines of millstones that have been collected and removed from the site, and they're almost filled in with sediment and the passage of time. Third site, that one probably is the most impressive. There are so many clear outlines. It's pretty cool, and some of these are huge. I hope you're gonna be able to see this, but there are carvings into this stone. This one is a cross. There's another cross right here on the left, and over here a ladder. So potential explanations for these markings into the rock. It could be just an act of faith. It could be also an attempt to invoke protection, divine protection during what was, a risky endeavor, collecting stones from all these rock faces, or some markers for, different objects buried into the ground, or something else entirely. We don't know, and there are no written records for this. So as I suspected, there are more millstones, outlines, and remnants of old quarries in these cliff faces. And it looks like it keeps going even further. So my estimate of about 150 feet is way off. It's at least twice that. And it goes up a pretty steep path. But since we're here, let's do the whole tour. Well, I'm telling you, seeing this site and the other sites in person really shows how amazing these are, and why they are said to be one of the best examples of millstone quarry sites in Europe. Here's an outline. The negative impression left by a millstone that was removed from the rock. You can still see the stonemason's work and the marks left behind, whether during the extraction process or the beginning of the chiseling out, outlining process of the millstone. And right next to it is a completed millstone, ready to use, basically, but it has been left as is in the rock. That could be due to some sort of default in the shape, the format, the size, or the contents of the millstone. It does look like there are lots of bits and pieces that could potentially detach, and it looks brittle. It looks like we've reached the edge of the site. There is a path that keeps going up, but there are no more quarry marks or millstone outlines into the rocks. I think this is it. So we can go back to our original video.
You know, what makes this historical site so special is just how accessible it is. The circular scars and the tool marks are immediately visible in the rock face.
The outlines of the stones you see above me are probably one of the smallest ones on this site, and it makes sense, they were carved out first, and then the deeper you go, the bigger the stones become. I think these are probably the biggest ones in this site. So if I stand next to them, they're probably like over 1 to 1.5 meters tall. In the early 2000s, archaeologists found a completely intact millstone buried in the ground. And now, seeing the shape of this stone behind me, I can't help but wonder if that was another one. Maybe it was broken during the extraction process and they just left it here. But nevertheless, the stone that was taken from here is now preserved for prosperity. There are a few factors that made this site important for millstone extraction. First of all, the cliffs were right here. You did not need to remove trees and soil and find some big rocks. The cliff faces were available for digging. They're also made of sand, stone, and morass, which are fairly easy to work with, at least compared to some other harder rocks like granite. Another thing is the presence of many rivers in the region. You did not have a lot of windmills, but you could have many mills to work with cereals and stuff. So the demand was there locally. And so some families made some big money working on these quarries. I saw some prices for the millstones that people would pay. I read that just the stone itself was going for 25 francs in 1842. I don't have the conversion for how much that is currently, but I do have the equivalent. It's about 500 eggs. So I don't know. The other piece of information that I saw about prices is that a stone made to order, cut out, delivered, and installed would go for the price of a small house, which seems like a lot, but when when you take into account the fact that we are on literally the top of a small mountain, and that the people would need to get the stone down, they would work on carving out the stone for 2 days, and they would need to take it down and get it down the mountain. There were no easy paths. They would just hold it with ropes on the steeper parts of the mountain. And then when you reached a flatter area with a path, you could get it carried. The carriage that would bring these stones, for one stone, they needed 4 horses and 2 oxen. Everywhere in this quarry, you see these small chisel marks, and that's part of the extraction process for the stones, which I'm going to explain a little bit. So the first tool that was used was a compass to draw the outline of the stone on the cliffs. That outline was then carved with a chisel a bit deeper all around the stone. Then, always starting from the top of the stone to the bottom, they would insert wooden spikes made of local trees, so fir, trees, pine. With time, they would wet the wood so it would expand, and slowly, with a lot of effort, the stone would detach from the cliff. Sometimes you see chisel marks where the stone needed a bit of help to detach from the cliff. One more reason for the success of this place is that the stones didn't tend to break apart when they were used. They were considered good quality. That doesn't seem like much, but if you're milling cereals, you don't want little pebbles in the final product, in the flour that you give to your customers, because they'd break their teeth on it. So that was definitely a plus. So that brings us to the end of the story for this quarry. And the reason why it's so well preserved, it almost looks like it's been abandoned as people were still working on it. And there are 2 main reasons for that. The first one is that farmers of the area moved from cereals and wheat to something with more added value, namely cattle. Cattle, the product was, of course, meat and milk and butter, and you don't need mills for that. So the demand sort of disappeared for millstones. And while the millstones have fallen out of use, you can still see many examples as they serve a decorative purpose nowadays. Like here behind me. Here. Or this one. Sometimes you see more fancy models like this olive oil mill, which is typical of the ones you'd find in Italy, even though currently I am in Japan. And here, and this one's really nice because you can see both the elements that would have been quarried. There's the wheel on top and the plate where you would drop the fruits or grains, and the wheel would go round and round, guided by the little circle and knob at the center. But really, what explains the sudden transition for this site and the reason it's been abandoned so quickly is the annexation by France of this region, Savoy, in the 1800s. Other quarries in France could produce the stones cheaper, faster, and they were already connected to railroads for easy transportation anywhere in France, in the country. You did not need to bring giant sandstones down steep mountain cliffs like these ones. So rather quickly, the 4 main quarries here, and actually all the quarries of the area, there are some really small ones, just stopped being used, and now we can visit them. I wasn't expecting to find some art in the middle of this mountain, but I think I found my profile picture. The University School of Medicine is preparing Israel's future physicians by teaching them advanced medicine, research, humanities, and communication skills.